Hey y'all, before we get into this special episode with my new friend Maggie Rahr, I have an announcement to make. As part of the Hear Tell podcast training initiative developed by Visual Arts Nova Scotia, I'll be doing a presentation on how I discovered the voice for the Art Pays Me podcast. You can hear how you can develop the right voice for your show. You get to ask me a bunch of questions, and I'll do my best to help you out and answer back. Then after that, you get to listen to Megan Black talk about how the Canadian Craft Federation produced a slick 10-episode run of the Citizens of Craft podcast, where all expenses were covered through grants, sponsorships, and partnerships. Shit. I might need to bring my notebook for that one. Give me some money, man. The event takes place on Tuesday, June 30th at 2 p.m. That's in 2020 for you time travelers out there, and that's 2 p.m. Atlantic time. Visit visualarts.ns.ca to register. And if you're Black, Indigenous, or person of color, message me to learn more about free registration. Peace. What up, artists? My name is Dwayne Jones. I'm the creative director and founder of a lifestyle brand called Art Pays Me. This is the Art Pays Me podcast, and I'm passionate about finding ways that people like you and me can make a living for ourselves off of our creativity. And, maybe we can make the world a better place at the same time. Let's get into it. Welcome to Art Pays Me. Today we have Maggie Rahr. So, Maggie, I came across Maggie on social media, I'd say, because I think I was looking into some local podcasts and things like that, and people were raving about the What Happened to Holly Bartlett podcast. So I was like, let me see who this person is. And then I was like, oh, like so many other people I've interviewed on here, I love their Twitter account. And here we are, and
Yeah.
started to get to know them better. So Maggie, what exactly is it that you do?
Well, first of all, thanks so much for having me. It's a real treat. So I'm a freelance investigative journalist in Halifax, and that's pretty much it.
Okay. All right. And so what does investigative journalism mean compared to, say, like journalism? Is there
Right.
a difference?
Totally. So you think about the news, if you're watching the news, so like covering the protests that took place outside Park Lane for Black Lives Matter,
Yeah.
that's like your daily news coverage. But investigative journalism would be like I'm trying to think of a good example. It's something that requires a lot more investigation, right? So it's like all of the data that ended up coming out about the street checks before of the Halifax Regional Police against Black and Brown people and Indigenous people in, that's not how it's logged in their system, but in Halifax,
Yeah.
that's the kind of story that you would consider investigative journalism. So a lot of the time it has to do with like accessing documents and building relationships with sources so they can trust you to tell you what they've observed or what they know. And then you're able to produce like a locked down piece of journalism that in which you have supporting evidence for the story that you're trying to tell, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of the time it takes a long time to do this kind of work because it takes a long time to build trust and it takes a long time to get that documentation.
It feels like you're almost like a Nancy Drew or a detective or something like that.
Yeah. A friend of mine the other day coined the term trauma reporting. I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, that sounds accurate because a lot of the time when people come to me, it's like something horrible has just happened to them or has happened to them, and they're trying to find a way to
Yeah.
get their story out. And yeah,
What drew you to that? Because I was thinking about that too. Like a lot of it is heavy, and I'm sure it must take some kind of an emotional toll, and there's got to be some kind of self-care practice built in there to help deal. Like what drew you to something like this?
well, I just wanted to be a reporter, right? Like I
Yeah.
started working at CBC when I was 19 as on like the weekend morning show.
Yeah.
I was just like going to take any job I could to just get into the newsroom. So that, yeah, I'm 37 now. So that started whatever, I guess almost 18 years ago.
Hmm.
And yeah, and then I had two kids. So it was like, I can't really do the daily grind anymore of, like showing up at the site of, uh, like a murder victim's family's home or whatever. Like you have children and it changes you. And it's like,
Yeah.
I just felt like I couldn't do that anymore,
Gotcha.
even though there is a way to do it with dignity.
Hmm.
And then ironically, I've kind of like ended up in this space where I'm now, a lot of the work that I do focuses on like injustice and sexual violation and um, like failure by bodies of authority, be it like police or the government or CERT or whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is heavy, and it's interesting you ask about self-care because, like, to be totally honest with you, I'm only just really starting to think about that now
Hmm.
in the midst of this pandemic because I'm like home taking care of my children and trying to work, and it's yeah, I've never had this much time to like sit with it and actually unpack like how to absorb this and handle it and keep going forward.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a work in progress. Like I'm not really sure but what to do, but it's become clear definitely in the last couple months that like I have to develop some kind of self-care practice. Yeah. So I'm
Yeah.
trying to figure that out.
Right. Like, so actually, how have you been dealing with the homeschooling and having that side?
Oh God. Well, to be totally honest, like I pretty much, my ex and I, who we co-parent together and have
Yeah.
like a really good situation. I basically told him like a week or two in that I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So my 8-year-old son is on the spectrum, and
Mhm.
he just the idea of like sitting down in front of a screen and engaging with, even though he like loves his teacher and has some buddies in his class and all of this, like he just couldn't connect.
Yeah.
So he'd be like flopping around on the couch and asking for toast. And frankly, I was like, I get it.
Yeah.
Like we're all we wanted, you're stuck at home. You just want to have another snack and like not engage too deeply with anything because yeah. So basically, and then I wrote a letter to his teacher and also to my daughter who's in primary. So she's, 5 years old. She went off for March break and basically never went back to school.
Right.
It's
Basically,
the
yeah.
same thing. It's like you jump on these Zoom calls and there's like 25-year-olds and she's looking at me like, why would I do this?
Hmm.
And I had no answer to that,
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but yeah, I mean, to be a little bit more, like on a more serious note, I basically just feel like explaining to children what a pandemic is and then coping with that is a fucking really serious education.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a lot to take on. So I feel like that's enough.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, even just the idea about like going on a walk around the block and here's somebody oncoming and to teach them that they had to physically move their bodies, like
Hmm.
we're only just getting into it now where I could take them out and not worry about that.
Yeah.
Because one of them is like a real like heel dragger and the other's really fast. She's always like bolting away from me. So the idea of like walking in tandem together and getting them to like shuffle onto the grass if somebody's coming, which they're pros at now, but in the beginning, like even that was really stressful.
Right. Right. I
So
found in my neighborhood, my neighbors were not moving, and my
yeah,
daughter's like in the woods, like
like
trying.
yeah, in the bushes.
She's like, my parents told me to stay away, so I'm trying to stay away. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
how are you finding it with your kids? Like, I mean, it's so surreal, isn't it?
yeah, it's been crazy. So I'm interested. It's interesting on my end. So both my wife and I are working from home. My wife's actually a
Right.
vice principal. So
Oh man.
yeah, and she teaches as well. So she's also having to manage a class from periodically and deal with the different dynamics of making sure that our kids are doing on track. So um, also like it highlights the dearth of um, inequity in the education system right now,
Big time.
because, it would be easy for her to, well, not easy because none of this is easy, but
Yeah,
she intentionally has avoided doing all digital things, or all, not all digital, but like all things that sort of require a higher level of technology than everyone in the class could have access to,
totally. Yeah.
because there are kids who just don't have access to that. Their parents only have a cell phone with a data plan, and that's as high tech as they get.
Yeah, or forget about it if there's like many children in a home that are all sharing one screen, expected to do, their work.
Yeah.
I got to give it up for teachers because honestly, like that first Zoom call that my 5-year-old was on, seeing her teacher try to like adapt and lead, like you can picture it, like 18 literal 5-year-olds.
Yeah.
So, and in fact, all the other kids were like sitting there and listening and answering and unmuting, and my daughter was like all over the place.
Yeah.
But I just have so much respect for her, like this teacher who it's such a radical shift from the work that they normally do. So I can only imagine what, it's been like for your partner to be, for your wife to be like managing in this time. I just got to give like a huge shout out to
Yeah.
teachers because what like an unexpected and kind of horrible shift.
Yeah, exactly. It's a completely
And then
different
complaints from parents like, oh my God.
right.
At one point, these parents were jumping in on the Zoom call being like, I think this content is too intense for this age group and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, email her. What are you doing? Like you're cutting into the meeting with all these kids. Like,
Yeah.
and this teacher is like doing such a good job trying to respond. But like, what a shit show, you
Oh,
know?
completely. Completely. And it's just, they know it's not ideal. So it's kind of hard, and they understand the frustration, because like a lot of them are also parents too, so they're dealing with the
Totally.
frustration. And my oldest daughter, her class has been more or less online from the start, so they
Huh.
really didn't adjust that much. And their
Oh,
teachers,
right.
like, yeah, very
She's a little
much.
older, right? So it's like grade 6 or something.
Yeah, so yeah, she's like on that cusp of junior high. So a lot of what they did is just updating stuff online anyway. So it's just, yeah,
Right,
no,
right.
we're just completely there.
Hmm.
Um it could have been at times very the deadlines were still strict, and sometimes,
Right.
pandemic, people
Yeah,
just
maybe like
more.
slacking the rope a little. Honestly, all we're doing is like the main thing that happens around here is the kids run laps around the house. Like that's the top activity, and I'm not even joking.
But you know what? And I can't blame you. And like, even my wife being on the educational side, like, she gets it too. Like, there's just not everyone is able to deal with this stuff in the same way. So
No, yeah,
um, it's just, you got to let people be where they are. She has like
yeah,
some people in her class who just aren't able to participate as much as others, and it is what it is. So
yeah, absolutely. Like my ex and I, the father of my kids, were both journalists, and it's
mm,
basically like I had this real moment of vindication at the beginning of this because he called me once and was freaking out. He had the children that day, and he was like, this is impossible. Like, I literally can't do this. And I was like, what's that again? Because I've been like taking care of the kids and reporting this whole time, right? And I was like, that's
uh-huh.
right. It's like completely impossible.
Yeah,
And they're too old to nap now. So it's not even like you get a 2-hour break or whatever.
yeah.
In fact, my dad popped over for a visit in the backyard yesterday and he was like, can't you make them nap? And I was like, make them nap?
Make them
Like,
mad, man.
you had 5 children. You should know better. Like, that just doesn't work. Even if I'm like, all questions need to be held for the next 5 minutes. Like, I just need to finish this thing I'm working on. It's like machine gun of like, mama, 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 mama. Like, they just can't help themselves.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And I'm not gonna lie, it's yeah, it's been very. I think my wife has definitely taken a lot more of the lead in the education side, and
Right.
I'm like, because like we're both working from home, we're both in the same room, but like they
Yeah.
keep asking her questions. They ask me the same question. I end up being more tech support because I can figure out the computer stuff, but the class
Right.
stuff, I'm like, I'm sorry, but you gotta have to. Your
Yeah,
mom's
take it
gonna
to
have
your
to help
mother.
you.
Well,
So
I mean, that's the way, like, every relationship, especially with parenting, has its breakdown of,
yeah,
like, not breakdown meaning falling apart, but breakdown of, like, these are your skills that work really well, like, with this kid even. Like, sometimes it
yeah,
goes like that, you know?
yeah. Yeah. So yeah, she definitely, I have to give her props. She's definitely like, she noticed when they fell behind in their work, and I asked them if they did the work. They said they did the work. She's like,
Right.
actually didn't do the work. So,
Yeah, yeah. You're like, "Oh, you checked."
yeah, like you got to actually check. Oh yeah, right. Okay, my bad. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So actually, Maggie, where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Halifax.
Ah, okay,
Yeah, I grew up on
cool.
Allen Street, which is just, like, one behind Quinpool.
All right,
Just,
cool.
like, walking around the city,
What
you know,
kind
so
of
that
kid were you? Were you like a shit disturber?
like, as a kid?
Yeah.
Um, hmm, yes and no.
Okay.
I think as a really little kid, I was, like, very, um, like, chatty and earnest and had a million questions and, like, quite a lot of intensity. Um, but I think I was, like, pretty rule abiding for the early years.
Oh, okay.
And then, yeah, around, like, um, 10 or 11, I think it just started to dawn on me like, I could probably be getting away with a lot more. And
Mhm.
I grew up in a big family, so I was one of 5 kids. So it wasn't like, there was no laser focus on me at any point.
Right.
And so that provided me with like a lot of independence, actually, like that I wonder if my kids will get to have, like
Yeah.
by the time I was my son's age, I was just like biking around the neighborhood, hanging out. Like I had a little like cassette player, you know,
Yeah.
like listening to me. I'd go like sit under this tree and like listen to Paul Simon's Graceland or whatever, and then nobody knew or cared where I was or what I was up to. It was just like do your own thing and come home for supper, like
I think about that too. I was super independent, or all of us were. Like, we just ran our neighborhood and did whatever the basically how we wanted to do, and no one really. Well, I shouldn't say whatever we wanted to do because we were more or less good kids. But like what we could have, we like I think about it all the time. I'm like, man,
yeah,
we really could have ended up dead in a ditch, and nobody
yeah,
would have a clue where we were, what we
yeah.
were doing. And like for you as an investigative journalist, do you like think about that? Like, does that make you think twice about letting your kids kind of be more free, or is it
I
just
mean,
the generation we're in?
yeah, I don't know. I mean, I have been thinking about this a lot, but as I mentioned, so my 8-year-old Teddy, he's on the spectrum.
Hmm.
And sorry, the cat just opened the door. That's what that squeak was.
Oh
I don't know if you heard it.
no.
Um, yeah, so it's funny, like in the midst of this pandemic, he's pretty pumped because he just wants to stay home and read and like he doesn't want to engage with the world. He's not into crowds,
Hmm.
volume is he doesn't like that. It's like any unexpected engagements with people. Like he's learned a lot and he's come a really long way. But for him, the idea that it's like, and now we stay home and that's all we do, he's like,
He
yeah, like
loves it.
pumped and super into it. Um, so part of me is like, I wonder if, um, you know, he had a different personality, if he would be more interested in like being out in the world. Whereas my
Mhm.
daughter is like quite wily and very independent. So I think as she gets a little bit older, she'll probably be more like me in that like
Mhm.
pitter patter, let's get at her kind of way.
Right. Right.
Like wanting to roam around. But where did you grow up?
I grew up in Bermuda.
Mm,
So I don't want to call it a suburb, but because Bermuda doesn't really have suburbs, but
yeah,
it kind of reminds me of just when you think about those neighborhoods where everybody knows each other. I lived in my grandmother's house, so
right.
all the neighbors were her age. They all like built their houses around the same time.
Right.
and they all knew my mom because my mom grew up in that same house, and so it was like that kind of place where if we got into any trouble, it was nothing for one of the neighbors to scream at us and be like, I'm
Right.
going to tell your grandmother, I'm going to tell your
Yeah, like,
mom.
actually the whole like, it's like the village or whatever, like, everyone has eyes on you.
Absolutely. Like,
And
yeah,
was it a childhood of, like, get outside kinda thing?
oh yeah, it
And
was
see you later,
definitely
like
that. It
yeah.
was get on your bike. Like I lived right by the ocean, so we'd fish, we'd go swimming. And that's the other thing. I'm like, we used to do this thing called shallow diving, and what that
Yeah.
means is you get up on a high rock and like know that it's intentionally shallow water and
Oh
dive
my
into it.
god.
You know how fucking stupid that is? Like if my
Or,
kid,
like, I know, all I'm picturing is, like, fucking head injuries and freaking out.
right? Like,
But
and
that
then
thing when you're
I
a kid and it's like you just think, like, "I can't be sunk," and you're just
right.
gonna fucking go for it.
Right. So it was all like, who can shallow dive the best? Meaning, like, make your body as horizontal as possible before you hit the water so you don't hit the rocks or the
Oh my
ground.
god, that's
You
so
know what I mean?
horrifying.
Like,
I
su-
wouldn't do that now.
me now, I'm like, the stuff we did, I shake my head. I'm like, just thankful that I'm alive and able bodied sometimes.
Yeah,
Um,
no kidding.
but yeah, but like we were kind of free to just to roam, and I think part of the reason they felt safe is probably because everybody knew each other, and yeah, so it was a nice upbringing, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were just reminding me talking about that, shallow diving of, like we used to spend summers in, like, outside Antigonish. My, grandparents had this, like, shack of a cottage, and we just go up there for the summer, like, all 7 of us.
Hmm.
And, my brother taught me how to, like, get under this bridge that was just down it's like a highway, right? Like a rural whatever area.
Yeah.
There's this river that, like, flowed out to the ocean, and it's like these big tarry old like wooden posts. And so you'd like climb over the like metal, thing that lines the edge of the highway
Yeah.
and like scramble down this like wet, slick, tarry, wooden post into this like shallow point if you went there at the right moment in the tide, obviously.
Yeah.
And we weren't really doing anything. We're just like fucking around down
Yeah.
there. And then you like clamber back up. But I can't even picture my kids doing something like that, which makes me feel kind of sad. It's like,
Hmm.
would they get to go explore some weird physical location like that on their own? I don't know. I don't know if they'd be motivated or if they would even get the opportunity. But like the other day, I was saying to my son, like, hey, before the pandemic, not the other day,
Yeah.
I was like, what if I like, slipped you $5? You could go over to the gas station and get yourself a treat on your own and just come back and walk across the street. And he was like, maybe next year,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
he's not quite there yet, but I think if I made the same offer to my 5-year-old, she'd be over there in a
Oh
heartbeat.
yeah, she'd be excited. Yeah. Well, I mean, we live out in Timberley, so we're
Okay.
somewhat rural, I'd say. So
Yeah.
part of the pandemic has just been, okay, for your physical activity, go outside and ride your bikes, go do something outside. And
Yeah.
you would think that would be easy, but they're like, no, they don't want to. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's they could somewhat explore this neighborhood in a similar way that I did, but it's hard to convince them sometimes.
I wonder if that's because like everybody's connected digitally now. It's like you text your friend or you message your friend or whatever.
Yeah.
Whereas when we were kids, it was like you just go outside and see who's around.
True. Yeah, you would. You would
It's like
literally
you go
just see.
literally like who's around. By the
Yeah.
time I was 11 or 12, like we just walked downtown.
Right.
I'd like have a little backpack and like my Sony Walkman,
Yeah.
and like walk or skateboard downtown. And then it's like, who's around? And then you just
Right.
hang out with whoever's around. And
Right.
it was kind of amazing. Like, because you just knew you'd run into someone eventually. Like I used to hang out with all these punks. We were like in the punk scene together. And it was great. You just go down, see who's around, sit around, maybe go for a swim.
Yeah.
Or we'd go to Pizza Hut or skateboard. It was like nothing ever really happened. But, we
Mhm.
had total independence.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Somewhere along the line that shifted. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, even like I was thinking, I have this friend Mara, and we used to call each other. You'd have to like call the newspaper, the Herald. the Chronicle Herald had this thing called the Herald line,
Yeah.
where you would like dial the number, and it was like, for horoscopes, press 1. For weather, press 2, or whatever. And you would call to get the movie times. So it's like movie times, press 5, and it would
Wow.
list off what was playing. So I'd call her, or she'd call me, and it'd be like, this thing's playing at 6:40, like, I'll be there. And then you just like run down to the theater, you know?
Yeah.
And I was talking about this recently too. Like, if you stood someone up back then, it was a fucking insult. There was no like texting I'm late or like bailing at the last minute. It's like, I'll meet you tomorrow at the fountain in Park Lane at 2 p.m. or whatever. And then if you don't show up, it's like, what is this person okay? I'm going to call their mom. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. Oh man, it took me back to university days, having some dates with girls and they just like don't show up, and you're like,
What?
no one had cell phones.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I don't have a cell
crazy.
phone. It was crazy. It was a whole different.
Or even like the idea of traveling somewhere without Google Maps, you know, like that you get somewhere. I was telling my friend the story about the first time I went to New York the other day, and it was like I had all these record stores that I wanted to go to.
Yeah.
And I fucking got lost trying to find every single one, like fully lost. I had no experience being on a subway or anything, you know.
Yeah.
I was too proud to ask for help. Like, you know, didn't want to look like an idiot or whatever.
Yeah.
And eventually I did find this one record shop in which I, by chance, bought what became like my favorite album ever.
Mm-hmm.
But, which is why I was telling the story to my buddy the other day. But it's like, yeah, fuck, how weird is that? That there was no, and now you can just like pop it in the address and it'll tell you exactly where to go, how many minutes it'll take you walking or on the subway or by bus or driving, you know, like it's crazy.
Yeah, we're completely in a different world. I remember in university we drove to Montreal with no Google Maps or anything like that, just a paper map. And
or it's like waiting for the next sign that says Montreal with a fucking arrow, you know?
Insanity.
Yeah.
And man, so let's talk about the podcast.
Okay.
What happened to Holly Bartlett? So how did you come across that? How did that come about?
So I actually was approached by, there's this local production company called Ocean Entertainment.
Okay.
And they had done like some other like true crime-ish series for television, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the director of this program, who was like going to do the TV show, got a hold of me and was like, we're looking for a journalist to be on camera, and it would be great if it was a woman. And I was like, no, wrong number. Like straight up just said no. I was like, I don't do TV. This is a bad idea. You don't want me, like, I won't be able to like follow your instructions. If I join, it'll be a headache for you. Like, you don't. Mm-hmm. And she was like, okay, well, think it over and I'll get back to you. And I was like, think it over? Like, what the fuck is going on here? Anyway,
I told them no.
Yeah. And so then she called me back and she was like, well, how do you feel about just doing some research for us? And I was like, absolutely. Because that's like a side hustle that I do to make my print habit affordable, basically. Uh-huh. So I had this meeting and I went in and they were like, okay, so the family's on board, first of all. Holly Bartlett was this like really well-known, beloved, like young woman who, you know how it is in Halifax, like everyone kind of knows everyone, even though the city's changed a lot, even in the last decade. And even since she died, but like she was a real like gal about town, you know? Mm-hmm. And since I worked on this, I actually ended up finding out that I have like 3 friends, that a couple that went to St. Yves with her, and like other people that knew her from working in the government or whatever. Like we probably would have met eventually. It was one of those, you know?
Yeah.
Like everyone has those people where you meet and then it's like, holy shit, how have we never connected before? We've both been living in Halifax the whole time.
Yes, exactly.
You know, those weird ones that like every now and again that happens.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I go in for this meeting to talk about the research, and they're like, the family's on board. They had all this documentation. Like they had her autopsy report. They had police documentation because they got it through the family, right? Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh my God. And I just kind of got sucked in because they already had so much on the go.
Yeah.
And so I thought I was going to walk out of that meeting. Like I booked a babysitter to cover my kids for me while I was at this meeting. And then at the end of the meeting, they were like, okay, well, here's the office that you'll be working in right down the hall. And I was like, oh shit. I had to call my babysitter and be like, can you stay for the rest of the day? Because they were like, and now you work here, basically.
Just like that.
Yeah. And then they eventually, it came out that they wanted to do a podcast. And I basically begged them. I was like, please let me do that, because my background is in radio.
Mm-hmm.
And I love podcasts. It's basically like, spoiler, it's just radio. But yeah, so I was like, please let me do this. And they were like they said yes. So I got to write the podcast episodes. But it was a bit of a weird setup, because they were doing the TV series, which I was a researcher for, and then ended up being in the show. But then I had free reign to kind of like build the podcast how I wanted to, with all of the tape that some of it had been gathered before I even joined the team.
Okay.
But yeah, it's like, you know, you have so much more time. Each episode was like 45 minutes long or whatever. So yeah, that way we got to like know the family and really understand, hopefully, you know, like what that loss was like for the Bartletts, like what, and the fight that they had to try to figure out what the fuck happened, you know.
Yeah. I
I
want
should
to.
have asked about language, by the way. I'm a real salty
That's
talker.
okay.
Sorry about that.
I don't have an anti-curse thing.
Anti-curse.
No.
Other than
No.
like curses, like I cast a spell on you type. None of those
Nah.
curses.
Yeah, I guess that's the cultural thing for me.
Oh yeah, no curse word. I grew up with that too in Nova Scotia. It's like, don't curse, for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, no, I used to be on another podcast, and we swore a lot on that
Yeah.
one. And then my mom listened to it, and she was like, I like it, but the
The
language. I
Yeah.
was like, sorry, mom. And then with this one, to me, I'm a believer in just let it go where it goes. I'm not going to
Yeah.
censor anyone. But I just don't. I think because the other one was more pop culture, and I was more like my guard was down.
Right.
Now
It was
I'm
like chit chat versus like in-depth conversations about people's lives.
yeah, like now I'm trying to be like fake journalist. So
Okay.
yeah, I don't know, but yeah, fuck it. Like I said, I've bounced flags.
Fuck it.
Like I curse a lot in my normal
Yeah.
world.
Yeah,
It's
me
just
too.
it's
What are you gonna do?
what are you gonna do?
It's too late. I can't like get a new personality or like develop new instincts. You know, it's too
Yeah, you know what I mean? And then I heard people who like swear are, intelligent. So, you know.
That's right.
So, I didn't know there was an actual TV show
Yeah.
about that too, actually. And actually, I want to say, I don't want to creep you out, but you have an amazing voice.
Oh, thank you.
Like listening to it, I was like, oh man, Maggie, jeez.
Appreciate that. It had some major benefits as a kid, because when you have a really deep voice, it's like, you know, my dad used to work out of our house. He was a mortgage broker, so he had like a phone upstairs, you know, but it was like the same family line or whatever.
Yeah.
And do you remember that thing where you could make the phone ring in your own house?
Yes.
It was like star five, whatever, and then you'd wait for a dial tone, and it was like beep, 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 like dial up sounds or
Yeah.
whatever. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
So you could do that, and I would pretend to be calling for my dad. At like when I was my kid's age, like 8 years old, I'd be like, "Oh, Nick, it's Barry. I'm calling about the files," and he'd be like, "Okay, Barry, like what files?" And then I would like lose the thread because I didn't have the next line of my prank, and he'd be like, "Maggie, god damn it!" Like you'd figure it out, but I could do it for like the first line or whatever. And then yeah, it helped a lot when I worked at CBC in the beginning, because you know, you're calling, it's like even just that idea, like you could pick up the phone and call anyone. It's like, I want to talk to the Deputy Minister of Justice. You know, even though like I'm a kid, they don't know that, right?
Yeah.
And it does help to have like a really deep voice, because people think, like I remember once going down to the legislature, the provincial legislature, and there was a politician who I'd interviewed a bunch of times, but he'd never seen me. So we were like standing face to face, and he was kind of giving me this like, who the fuck is that look? And then when I started talking, he was like, oh my God, it's you. Like he hadn't put it together. So it is kind of like a superpower, I have to say.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. I was going to go into, I mean, I was thinking more just your voice I just liked your voice, but do you think it's like some kind of gender bias thing where people are like, "Oh, I trust you more because you sound like a
Absolutely.
man."
Yep. Totally. 100%.
Huh.
Definitely. It's like, I mean, you still hear about all that. It's like if there's a new, like a fill-in host on, one of the morning or afternoon shows on CBC Radio, all over Twitter, it's always the same bullshit. It's like people complaining about like the uptick in inflection or whatever.
Yeah.
And I've known women who are journalists who have like worked really hard to change their voices basically, which
Wow.
fucking breaks my heart that it's like
Yeah.
you have to, because it's enough to prepare your questions and like try to be in the moment. And especially if you're interviewing someone live, right? Like I've never been an anchor or a host or anything like that, but like
Mhm.
you have to invest all of your focus in like listening to what this person is saying and responding in the moment and picking up if they like, lead a certain way, then you want to like really zero in on that moment and make sure that the conversation is as fulsome as it can be.
Yeah.
And if you had this background thought of like, don't sound like this or don't sound like that, I mean, you know, I've also had some Black colleagues who have talked about like learning to quote unquote talk white, which I'm
Yeah.
embarrassed to say that I'd never heard about, right, until adulthood.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's shattering. The idea that you'd have to like change the way that you speak to be taken seriously. What the fuck? Like that is
Yep.
crazy.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah.
And all of that effort, that it's like that energy could be better spent elsewhere. Like people deserve to have the full capacity of their minds to focus on their work.
Mhm.
But at the same time, I think when you're forced to do another job like that that's invisible, that's
Mhm.
happening all the time,
Yeah.
in a way it's like it makes you more powerful because people don't, it's like you are multitasking and you're already managing so much more than what's
Yeah.
visible on the surface, right?
Yep. Yep. There's the constant code switching. So it's
Yeah.
for me it's interesting. Bermuda is a very conservative uh island, and it's still a British colony, like still kind of
Yeah, literal colony.
still like literally a British colony. Like Canada, likes to claim the queen. I still don't fucking understand that. Fuck that shit. But Bermuda
I completely
literally
agree.
still
It's like
is
for what? So we could
part
pay
of
for
it.
your fancy fucking vacations when you come here? Why?
I know, right?
You live in a fucking castle. What the fuck? you know? Like
Yeah.
sorry, I
Like
didn't mean to cut it. Go ahead.
no, yeah, I never understood that shit. Like I don't. And my mom's a fan of the Royals and all that stuff, which whatever. But like,
I
um,
think it's a generational thing, you know?
yeah,
I don't
probably.
know anyone even remotely close to my age that's like, yeah, the Royals,
Yeah.
you know? I mean, I'm all about Meghan Markle though. It's like
Same
run for
here.
your life,
Same
you know?
here. Same here.
But like, but I'm about her because of the way that she's handled herself in this nightmare situation.
Yeah.
Not, it's not because of like, oh, because of my pre-existing interest in the Royals. Now I care about Meghan Markle. Like, I don't think I even really knew who she was before.
Hmm.
And then, you see and hear about this fucking bullshit that she has to endure.
Yeah.
And when they were like, we're out, I was like, yes, Megan.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't blame him at all for saying like enough is enough. Like,
No. And they already made that really unprecedented move where like Prince Harry put this release out to the media because the British tabloids are like, it's horrifying, right?
hmm,
They just stalk them.
yeah.
And, you could argue that like that's the reason that his mom is dead. Like Princess Di being
Yeah.
fucking chased, like
Yeah.
and having their lives just be like every little minute that they're literally being stalked, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
And they put all these headlines, side by side, where it's like how Kate Middleton was treated during her pregnancy versus how Meghan Markle was, and it's like the exact same headlines, and one of them is being treated like garbage, and you know who it is.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they put a release out at some point saying like basically back off, and
Hmm.
in the second or third paragraph they use the term racial undertones. or overtones or whatever, which was like shocking language for them.
Yeah. Right.
Like a huge deal that they even did that with like on the stamp of, Buckingham Palace, like letterpress or whatever it's called,
Yeah.
And then of course it didn't work. They just completely ignored it. And then, yeah, but I think it's amazing that they got out. It's like, have your life. You don't have to fucking all of that. It's a bunch of noise and mess. It's just ridiculous.
Yep.
Yeah, I was joking the other day on Twitter. I'm like, thank God she got out before the pandemic.
I know, right? Like, she's, yeah. But like, yeah, I was saying that because, it's kind of conservative. We wore uniforms when we went to school, and we're
Right.
kind of trained from like the age of 5 to just always be polite, always be respectable, always be, knowing, it's always good morning, it's always good afternoon. There was no calling adults by the first name. Everybody was Mr., everybody was Mrs., unless they were a close family friend and they were aunt or uncle. And
Right. Would you really say good afternoon?
oh yeah,
Like, good
absolutely.
afternoon, Mr. Whatever?
Yeah, like good afternoon,
Oh,
Mr. Whatever. You walk into a barber shop, you say good afternoon, everyone. You walk into a
oh,
room,
that's so formal.
like yeah, you were. It's like expected of you. You were like standing up, giving up your seat in the bus. It wasn't like a suggested thing; it was an expected thing. So,
Yes, yes.
all these kind of formal things to me are, in some ways, are great. In other ways, sometimes when you start getting older, you are expected to do these things in certain settings, and even like you mentioned with changing the way you speak, and you're
Mhm.
encouraged to, I mean, you couldn't get rid of the Bermudian accent in Bermuda because everyone has it, but like you'd be considered to um reduce your slang, or
Yeah,
in a way, I guess. And I
right.
started
Like,
to,
always favor the formality.
yeah, and I started to get a sense that, is this like performance for white people? Is that what this is about? Or is
The
this,
colonizers.
you know, it,
Yeah.
it starts to make you think that, is that what this is about? And yeah. Anyway, yeah, I kind of went off the rails with that one,
No,
but
no, it's all good.
yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. So I noticed online sometimes you're like critical of police, and even like, the cab driver situation here,
Yeah.
where we've had these sexual assaults in cabs and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Has your investigative journalism impacted your views of these things, or were you just kind of like skeptical in general?
Absolutely. But the crazy thing is that it goes both ways. So on
Mm,
the one hand, it's like, yes, the corruption, and I will use that word, is like undeniable.
right.
So, you know, we it's not just the police department. It's Nova Scotia is a racist, misogynist province. Like, that's our foundation,
Hmm.
right?
Uh-huh.
And homophobic, transphobic, like all of the
Yeah,
bad
all of the
things,
bad things.
like we're our specialty. um, but yeah, so it's like the more you pull on that thread, the more that you discover, like, one of the cases that I reported on this year involves this woman, Carrie Lowe, who was like abducted and raped, and who, unlike the majority of most victims and or survivors of sexual assault, she went to police and had total faith that like they were going to investigate and do this.
Hmm.
And she was the one that was like had agency and was following up and really believed that they were going to have her back and get these guys who did this.
Yeah.
And then a year and a half later, after all these delays and miscommunications and just really awful, like she had to provide her video statement on 4 separate occasions. There were all these shifts in the officers that were assigned to her case. Like, it really fucked her up
Hmm.
really, really badly.
Yeah.
And then a year and a half later, she comes to find out that like the guy who was assigned to her case, the very first investigating officer, who she thought was responsible for all the delays, was actually going to bat for her, and that it was the unit that was like telling him to shut it down, literally saying shut it down. And then
Wow.
after her story broke in the news and she ended up having this case in the courts, which is too complicated to explain now, but for all intents and purposes, like her story became public. And this guy reached out to her, the cop, and was like, I want to meet you in person. And he apologized and explained that like he, you know, did his best and that he was really trying to go to bat for her. And to learn that like they were both being fucked over. It's so on the one hand, it's like, yes, there are like generations deep fucking problems in our police and our CMP detachments across this province that need to be addressed immediately. Like, look no further than the mass shooting to understand that like they were warned about this guy. And we know that people who commit mass murders are almost always white men. They almost always have a history of intimate partner violence or domestic violence that was known, right? And then they go on to do this. And in this case, the RCMP knew that this guy, like they'd had reports that this guy was like violently attacking his partner, and doing all kinds of horror. I don't know if you read that bit about how they were at a party once in Portapic, and she wanted to leave, and he didn't want her to leave, so he like slashed the tire. It was like he removed the tires off the car and threw them in a ditch, like crazy abusive shit. There's no wiggle room there. It's like red flag,
Yeah, that's not normal behavior in any like.
No, and if you knew someone that was like even a good friend, if you saw them doing that, you'd be like, a word, like. Anyway, so on the one hand, it's like the closer you look, the worse it is.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, there are, and I'm not a cop apologist. Like, as you say, I'm publicly very critical about once I get the facts, I have no fear in saying like, you fucked this up and this is egregious and it needs to be addressed immediately. But there are good cops.
Yeah.
There are. And I have sources who are like, I rely on them for information and we trust each other. And I know that they are trying to do their best in a broken system. So it's complicated, like everything,
Yeah, I feel the same. I actually have a good friend who's a police officer, and I know people who have partners who are in the police, and it sucks for them in this situation because it's the system is broken, and it's hard to function in a broken system, and when you're in that, it's
What do you think about officers kneeling at these protests for George Floyd and for all Black and Indigenous people that are murdered by police?
Makes me uncomfortable.
Everything's in that answer.
Okay, so I'll tell you, I appreciate the sentiment of solidarity. So I'll put it that way. I'm very much a person of, I look at what someone's intention is. Sometimes people try to do things and it just doesn't turn out right. So I look at it, okay, I think they're intentionally trying to show solidarity. So I think that's a good thing. Where it puts me off is George Floyd was murdered because a cop kneeled. So seeing you guys kneel doesn't make me feel good.
And it's so weird that it's like that visual image.
Yeah. It's
like, is it not? I just can't believe it's lost on them that it's like, that is the exact physical placement that was the most recent in this like unending string of fucking violent murders.
Yeah. It's so I'm like, it's kind of in like a.
But you're trying to take a nuanced lens and be like, what do they like? You're actually thinking about the complexity of what it would be like to be an officer.
Yes, to me, and that's the thing that sucks about me, to be honest. I hate that about myself, but I love it at the same time. I have the ability to see multiple perspectives, and sometimes I see people like being very strong in one way, and I almost wish I could be that strong and just say,
how can you hate yourself for that? That's amazing. I know what you mean, though. It's like, are you thinking like it would be easier if you could just if it was like, fuck the police, that's it?
Exactly. I wish, because in some ways, I think my perspective could be perceived as being a police apologist or
Mm,
uh, a white apologist or whatever you want to call it, apologist, because I just have the ability to see, or at least I try to see things from other people's perspective and not just automatically assume the worst, but I do see what's actually happening. So, I do believe the system is systemically racist. I do believe because anti-blackness is embedded in not just Canada and Bermuda as well, because I experienced it there, in the US, obviously, and in my friends who are international who said, yeah, my
yes.
parents would be pissed if I dated a black dude, and that's because of anti-blackness. Is any, you know what I
Yes.
mean? That's it's like in every scenario. I had the chance to go to Tokyo when I was 17
Oh, wow.
and experienced anti-blackness there. Like people in
Mm,
my group were refused entry into the nightclub because they were black. You know, so stuff
yeah.
like that. It's like when you're constantly reminded that everywhere in on Earth, people that look like you are considered the lowest bar.
Yeah.
When someone signs up to be a police officer, they're likely coming in there with that same lens, and then it's like, how much are they being like? I think it's great that we're talking about psych assessments and all that kind of stuff for police officers, and because you just, yeah. So I yeah I'm just, I try to see the whole picture. I try to see the whole picture. Like, and
Yeah.
I don't need to have experienced negative um interactions with the police to believe that the police need to do better.
Oh,
And
yeah. I
and
mean,
no, go ahead.
that's the big barrier for like white people not getting it,
Yes.
is that it's like you can't imagine what that's like.
Yeah.
It's like you have one conversation with one black person. I don't know anyone that hasn't had to deal with like, you know, fucking like being traumatized by police.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Black people, I mean, it's like,
Yes.
and it starts in childhood. It's like you spend 10 minutes talking to any black person in Nova Scotia about this, and there's no way that they haven't felt this and lived this.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the distinction, is that white people are like, it's just like you can't. I mean, it's funny you mentioned Tokyo. I got to go there once too on this trip that was paid for. Otherwise, it never would have happened. But yeah, I was using that as an example recently. It's like, when you're anticipating going somewhere like on the other side of the world or whatever, and you're like imagining what it's going to look like, what the food is going to be like, what
Mm-hmm.
it's going to feel like to be there. But none of that compares to actually being there.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you can't, even begin to think about what that might be like for someone else,
Mm-hmm.
then, you know, then your chances of understanding are fucking diminishing.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think in terms of, that being a good thing for me, maybe it's that, because I choose to see other people's perspective, because I'm like, maybe I've experienced people not being empathetic, like you said, like a lot of white people saying, well, this hasn't happened to me, or I would never think that, or I would never do that, so therefore it
Yeah.
doesn't happen.
Yeah.
It's like,
I mean, first of all, okay, I think if you're the kind of person who, I don't think you could choose to like think differently. You know what I mean? Like your brain is the way that it is. And you're going to be like looking at everything with all these multiple lenses. But,
yeah.
you know, you also get to like choose what you do with all that information. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
Yeah.
all of that nuance and all of that, like the well of like interpretive substance or whatever that you can like really see a picture in it's like technicolor or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like in a multi-dimensional view of any given conflict, let's say,
Hmm.
but you still get to like say and do whatever the fuck you want about it. I mean, the thing that I'm really thinking about now that I hope I will hear more white people talking about is that it's not just ignorance to say like, you know, even people saying like, well, if they weren't rioting, then maybe people would listen. Or, it's like all of Twitter saying like, somebody was like, what would Martin Luther King do if he were here now? It's like, well, they killed him. So,
There you
like,
go.
this is the top example of like nonviolent leadership and let's join hands and, like rooted in religion, right?
Yeah.
And peace.
And
They fucking killed him. So like, what more evidence do you need that doesn't fucking work?
Yeah.
But anyway, my point being that like white people are so quick to jump to saying like, well, if you did it differently, or like police black reactions. And the thing that I haven't seen that I think is true is that that's like an inadvertent act of white supremacy.
Oh,
That it's like
100%.
you can't examine your unearned power
Yeah.
and the domination that you have, but you don't want to fucking lose it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you like being on top and you don't want to fucking go anywhere else. And it's like, what? That is what's terrifying, is that it's driven by white supremacy. Like, I'm saying this to you, you obviously know this, but it's like.
No, but we're sharing it. This conversation is being shared, and I think some people need to hear it because they don't understand.
Yeah, and I'm a white person, full disclosure. Fuck us. Like, we fucked this up bad. And I think, like, it's really scary to come out and say that you fucked up or that you said something wrong or whatever. But, like, we need to learn how to do that.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I think
yeah. So if anybody listening to this knows me and is like disagrees with what I'm saying or has questions, contact me. Do not contact your black friends, colleagues, coworkers. Don't do it. Bring it to me. They're fucking tired.
Yes, exhausted. Exhausted.
Yes.
I think when you say that too, that's a good point about their reactions. Is I think a big contributor to white supremacy is, like I said, and actually it ties back to what I was going to with the conservativeness in Bermuda, is that I've learned from an early age to play the game of how to be palatable to white people,
Right.
And there are times when I just don't give a fuck and I don't want to be, and I'm gonna dress the way I want to be. I'm gonna speak the way I want to speak. I want to listen to my rap music and do what I got to do. And then there are times when I completely am buttoned down. I can wear the shirt and tie, and I can speak. I got the master's degree. I can do all that. I can play the game. But we shouldn't have to.
No, on your terms.
Yeah, it's
like because you want to.
Right.
I mean, I think about that fucking effort and the labor it's like your whole life of doing that.
Yeah.
And that's what white people don't seem to understand.
Right. Because I remember being like, I grew up listening to hip hop, and, all of my friends did. We wore the baggy clothes and the big chains and all that stuff. And that's what we did and then I came to
like every other group of kids that fucking models their fashion on their music, like their musical heroes. That's always fucking happened.
Exactly.
Right?
That's exactly it. Right. So it's like, I just remember people either thought I was a drug dealer or assumed I was a tough guy. In Bermuda, I was an unintimidating nerd. Came to Halifax, all of a sudden I was like this intimidating dude. People were like telling me I'm scary. People thought I was a drug dealer. And then I go in the black community and they're like,
you're like, I'm a child. Literally.
It's insane. And then you find yourself I remember being refused entry at the Dome back when I used to go there all the time. They were like, they didn't like how long your shirt was. They didn't like that you had a do-rag on. And it's like just these weird little microaggressions that you be hit with because you're not performing whiteness, at least in a way that is palatable to these people. It was like,
that is exactly it. It's so insidious. Remember they had that fucking racist dress code that came out of that?
Yeah.
At the Dome, where it was like, exactly that. It's like no do-rags, no this and that. It's like, what the fuck? Like, also the Dome is such a shithole. Like, how dare you? You know what I mean?
This is it. And you know what? let me put this, I've evolved since I was in that age group.
Yeah, but okay,
Feeling.
all like when you're 20, all you want to do is go have some drinks and dance and with loud music. Like that's just normal
Yeah,
shit.
but no, like I'm saying it from the perspective of like I was kind of elitist.
Oh,
I'll give you that because I was like I had this whole uppity black guy thing where I was like, these motherfuckers see me dressing like this, but they don't know I'm in university. I'm gonna fuck shit up when
yeah,
I
I'm
get out.
smarter
So
than
I
you,
had
dummies.
that attitude.
Yeah, yeah.
Now
But
I'd
is that
be
elitist or is it factual? I
it's
mean, who's to
yeah, it
say?
might be a little bit of both, I guess. But I guess my whole thing is like I should have gotten respect whether I was in university or not. You know what I mean?
Yes. No, that
And
it was totally driven by racism, like
yeah,
plain and simple. That's all that
yeah,
was.
yeah. So
Ugh,
man, I'm glad we're having this conversation on here. This is cool.
I'm so sorry. As a white Nova Scotian, it's like we're fucking. Ugh, God, it's. I'm
But you know
sorry.
what? As a man, I'm a man, so I recognize I have privilege as a man too, because so I can apologize on behalf of men because we ain't shit either. There've been many times, and you know what? Like it's so funny how racism and how like biases work and things like that because I've been in situations where a person would be like, I'm not anti-black, like I love black people, and then say something racist about an indigenous person in my presence and think I'm not going to check them on it.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, or like I've been in situations where uh, I'm sharing a car with a male driver, and then there was a woman that was in there. The woman gets out, and then he automatically says some sexist shit, and I'm like,
Totally.
dude, like seriously?
Yeah.
And they, maybe because they see I look like I play sports and I'm like your typical masculine looking dude that I'm gonna just jump
Roll with
in
it.
and
Yeah. And then it's crazy. Like even these are not um, the same issues, but like it reminds me of people refusing to use they and them pronouns.
oh yeah,
Which is like, what the fuck is wrong with you? What does it cost you? It
nothing.
costs you nothing to
Yeah,
just go, okay, and guess what? Like you're gonna trip up and make a few mistakes and whatever. It doesn't fucking matter. Just keep moving. Like as long as you're trying.
yeah.
But the people that are literally like, I won't do that. It's like, man, you bought into this fucking binary big time.
Big time.
And there is a link back to that idea of white supremacy. It's like, who are you fighting for exactly
Mm-hmm.
when you refuse to do this? Like, whose bidding are you doing? Are you
Mm-hmm.
even aware of that? It's like the patriarchy, motherfucker. Like, rein it in. Like it doesn't hurt
Yeah.
anybody to just say, yeah, okay, they. I mean, it's not complicated.
No, I don't. Yeah, it's mind boggling. It's
Yeah.
mind boggling. Like
But like on that note, and I didn't intend to bring this up, but it kind of feels like here we are. So I'll launch in. So my little girl, my daughter, who's 5, is trans, and
okay,
she shared with us like her true self, basically like more than a year and a half ago.
okay,
After what I like to say was like a generous trail of breadcrumbs.
okay.
But she was so tiny. It's like 3, 4 years old. It's like I didn't want to impose anything on her that would enforce the binary, right?
Uh-huh.
Because I was like, I don't know, like maybe what if she's just like gender nonconforming or whatever, right? Like,
Right? Yeah.
so my ex and I were like, well, we'll just follow her lead, right? And we'll figure it out. And she came out like so clearly. It was like, I am a girl. And
Really?
she said this every morning and evening for like a week. And then
Wow.
there's been no looking back. And that's it'll be 2 years in October. And in the beginning, certain family members who shall go unnamed were really bucking. Like it was difficult. And I was
Mm-hmm.
sending a lot of like letters and resources but also like that's my fucking kid.
Yeah.
Like I had to get my claws out a little bit to say like if you cannot make an effort, use her new name, use her pronouns, then like you can't come around because it's not safe for her.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
literally our job is to protect her and love her, and
Yeah.
this is all I ask. But I will say that there's one family member in particular who like really struggled with this,
Mm-hmm.
who's come around, who now is
Mm-hmm.
like, yep, no problem, like pronouns, name, cute little girl, like secondhand clothes. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Yeah.
um but it's like, it's almost like a visceral reaction of no,
Yeah.
you know. And then when they can, I was having this conversation with another friend recently where it's like, it's not about, you can use all the charts and fucking stats and research and documents and whatever, but it's not that. It's like people need to feel it to get it.
Mm-hmm.
And then as soon as you can feel it, then it's like, oh, then there's like the yellow brick road of growth and evolution or whatever. But yeah, like it's just been really interesting to watch that process unfold, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and seeing someone come around to it.
Yeah. So you really feel like they couldn't empathize. They just
Or it felt like an attack, I think. It felt like,
attack on
it's
what
like,
they
why
know.
are you doing this? And
Right.
I'm like, you know, and even before she shared with us that she was a girl,
Mm-hmm.
um, she would ask to wear dresses, and I was always like, fuck yeah, whatever. Like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
especially when they're like preschoolers, come on. Like
Mm-hmm.
getting them to wear clothes at all is a battle. But at one point, people would always ask, why are you putting him then?
Mm-hmm.
Why are you putting him in a dress? And I was like, all I'm doing is not saying no.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right.
Also, like, have you ever tried to make a 3-year-old wear anything? It's
Yeah.
fucking impossible. You know what I mean? And also, like, have you met me? Like, I'm not even, I'll wear a dress every now and again, but I'm not like, you know, it's not like super femme over here, like, look out.
It kind of makes sense, eh?
Yeah. Yeah. But
Yeah,
yeah,
no.
so I don't know. It's like, fuck, I really just hope after this protest on Monday, I really did walk home feeling, and I like had a big cry before I went to sleep. And,
No.
but it's like, I really, there is a part of me that feels hopeful, that isn't contrived, that I'm not like pushing for or clinging to. It's like, I am hopeful that
Mhm.
people are going to fucking wake up and come around. And I am, you know, I really am.
Yeah.
And I hope we can start doing some of the work for you, just recognizing that like Black people have been fucking doing it the whole goddamn time.
Mhm.
Like, share the burden, take on some of that weight for you so you don't die carrying it all around by yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Man. I I'm so torn with all of this too. Like I've had people ask like how they can be helpful, and I'm grateful, but then at the same time I'm not sure how to answer other than don't be
Yeah.
racist and um be nice to Black people. I don't know.
Yeah, well, it's like that thing that Lynn Jones said at the demonstration where she was like, "I didn't create this problem, and now you want me to come up with a solution for it."
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
how the fuck does that math work?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, and I think that people probably do mean well when they're asking, "What can I do to be helpful?" But it's like, step one, don't ask. Like I was saying before, it's like, don't bring that to the people that you know and love and work with and whatever, neighbors, whatever,
Yeah.
who are Black, who are already fucking so traumatized.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, do pick up a fucking book. There's, you know, like,
Yeah.
and I think even that is like another, you know, layer of white supremacy, is that it's like, sometimes white people think asking is enough, that they've performed their duty and now give me a fucking cookie, you know, like, I'm so good, tell me how great I am. Instead of like, no, you got to unlearn your own shit and stop being an asshole, you know?
Yeah, like I don't know, you saw what I posted on Twitter right before this with the new old followers.
Yeah, I saw that.
I don't know.
I was
I
going to
gotta
reply with
stop.
the like eye roll emoji, and I was like, I'll just like
I'm gonna.
it.
I maybe I should stop because I'm getting bitter. But I'll just put it this way. Um, I have been talking. I don't consider myself an activist by any means. but I have been honest about how I feel about race when I'm asked, and
Mm,
I share it in my art periodically.
yeah.
And in 2018, I had an article that came out where I was asked about it, and I spoke on candidly about my experiences as a Black creative. And the headline was unapologetically Black in like big letters. I got all this hate mail, well, not hate mail, but like I got some hateful comments and things like that. Some guy sent some rambling email about how terrible my work is and how I should go back to Africa if Canada's so bad and all this kind of stuff. Now in 2020, everyone is like on this pro-Black shit that
Yeah.
I got like bashed for, and so many of my contemporaries get bashed for. So
Yeah.
it's making my head spin a little bit that like, you know,
Not funny. I'm just laughing because I hadn't really thought about it like that. Like this explosion of like support, whether it's performative or real, would
yeah,
be like a lot to take in.
it's a lot. It's a
Yeah.
lot, you know, like I've been invisible for a long time and all of a sudden like I'm not invisible. And or when I wasn't invisible and I was vocal about things, it made people uncomfortable. So they unfollowed me.
Oh my god! You just made the the hair on my arms raise. If this were a story, that would be the clip. It's like that's it. This thing happens sometimes when you're interviewing someone where they say something that's like so concise and clear and perfect, and there's like a ting that
Yeah.
goes off in my brain mid conversation. It was like that's the money right there. I'm gonna go back and listen to it again.
Yeah. 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 It's it. It's like now all of a sudden they're asking for me to be vocal about it. And it's just you know, where were
Yeah, it's
you
like
when
another layer of exhaustion.
yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
you're like,
So
I've been here the whole fucking time.
yeah. Like I'm trying like I don't really like it when I see allies trying to be helpful and they, you know, say the wrong thing and then they get smashed over the head. I'm not
Right.
really a fan of that so much. So I'm really struggling to not be that guy. But
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, I feel like I'm being that guy right now because it's like, you know, you go so long being ignored and even criticized to like,
Yeah.
all of a sudden everybody loves you. It's like, it's a lot to take on.
Yeah.
And
I
yeah,
wish there was like a real life, like forward, whatever, where it's like anytime you have to confront this, it's like, and forward to your like white friends or whatever. Like, it's like that hashtag on Twitter, settler collector, you know, when people are being like anti indigenous and being fucking horrible.
yeah.
And then they'll tag in settler collector. So it's like,
Oh,
so that people who are, you know, dealing with this directly don't have to.
gotcha, gotcha.
It's like, whose
That's really
job is
smart.
it?
Yeah.
It's like come like collect. It's like collect the settlers and get them the fuck off my feed. You know. And I wish there was some way to. It's like yeah, like white, the like uh, white forward or something, so that you fucking wouldn't have to, you know, have the burden of having to deal with this at every stage. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Man.
wish I could just like, you know, I wish there was like a travel voucher or something that I could give you, like for when it's safe, when it like after the pandemic, to just fucking like skip town and go to some beautiful destination for a little while and just get a break, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I anyway, like I said, on the spectrum of things, I'm privileged. You know, the upbringing I had, the fact that I was able to get an education, come here, have a positive life and all that kind of stuff. Being a man, I recognize my privilege. So I try to not be too caught up in the negative. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
It's just sometimes it's just
Well,
this
for
shit
your
is
own
crazy.
health, I mean, you know, what do you do for self care?
Basketball. Um, I was, I used to say martial arts, but not really, not so much anymore, but mostly basketball. I have to make sure that I sleep regularly. I make sure I take breaks, generally speaking. I'm really mindful. I really pay attention to my body. I really pay attention to my mind and say, look, it needs a break right now. So I'm taking a break. My
Yeah.
body hurts right now. I'm gonna chill for a bit. But
Yeah.
then with the pandemic, I haven't been able to play basketball. So I've been like edgy, edgy. Then now the courts are open, but you can't really play. So I went and went by
Yeah, I guess you
myself
could
the
like
other
go
day.
alone, but
Yeah. But you know what? I was even craving just to be able to go and shoot a ball was something I was
yeah,
missing a lot. So I
the
went. But
sound
then
of it like bouncing, that like
yeah,
bing.
the whole thing was like felt so good, but then of course, I'm 39, so I blew my knees out just immediately because I got too
Oh,
excited.
oh, I feel for you.
So now like I thought I'd be back to the court every day, and now it's like, I gotta wait till my knees are kind of back.
Yeah. A friend of mine on Twitter the other day was like, I'm at the age where I wake up and my back hurts for a reason I can't discern. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, that cuts.
Yeah. So but yeah, that's my big self-care. And then, I actively try to make sure that I'm just there for like wife time and kid time. So,
Yeah.
you know, she likes to watch TV. I'm not really a TV watcher, but like I'll just make a point to sit down and watch 90 Day Fiance or some other dumb shit.
Yeah.
Just
That shit is
like
addictive.
it is. Just to take me outside of being stressed out about things. So
Yeah. Yeah. Also, it's an act of love for her, right?
yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, I when the kids were smaller and I was more on the grind with my business, I would just constantly have my laptop open,
Yeah.
and I realized that was like she wasn't getting that attention from me because I was kind of
Mm.
there.
Right.
Um,
Like you're physically in proximity, but you're not actually like being intimate just with each other.
yeah. So
Like
now, like,
even just like neutrally paying attention to someone is so valuable.
right. So I've been making more of an effort to do that. The problem though is I'm not as productive as I probably could be, but
Who the fuck is this time is unprecedented. It's a literal global crisis.
exactly.
Like, don't, this is what I'm trying to tell myself when I'm looking at like how much I haven't gotten done. I'm
Yeah.
like, maybe that's okay.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, and I'm like, oh man, I should have created an ad for that product. I should have updated my inventory here. I should have reached out to this person for an interview. I've been
Yeah.
wanting. It's just the list is endless. I could literally just work 24/7 if I wanted to.
Oh God, I know. Tell me about it.
So
And then on top of the work of like caring for children,
right, exactly. So
and then
I'm
there's
like,
nothing left. It's
there's
like there's
nothing
no
left.
space left for just, yeah. I
Yeah,
think that's the thing I need to like really think about is that I need time alone
yeah.
to like be functional in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I forget that. And then as soon as I get it, I'm like, this is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Just like listening to a podcast or music or whatever, just like sitting out in the yard and thinking about nothing
Yep.
is so
Exactly.
valuable.
Yeah,
I
it's
gotta slot
important.
some of that in.
So that's kind of your thing, like just kind of having that alone time where you can.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's funny, even like thinking about, like everything reopening, which I guess
Mm-hmm.
is starting technically today, which I'm a little bit nervous about, whatever. I won't get into that.
Yeah.
But when I think about like returning to being in the physical presence of other people, it's really weird because the stuff that comes to mind immediately is like being alone surrounded by other people. So like there's a bar in my neighborhood that I go to work, and I always
Mm-hmm.
get teased because I sit in the same corner with my headphones on,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll work for like an hour or two, and then I might have a beer and chat with a few people before going home or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I was saying to a friend of mine who works there, I was like, we were chatting like, oh, I miss the bar, whatever. And she was like, really? Because all you do is hang out by yourself and ignore everyone. But it's like that, the same thing at like the local coffee shop or like going out for dinner. Like I like hanging out alone in public, as weird as that sounds. Like
Yeah,
I
I like that
love
too.
that. I find it like nourishing, you
Yeah,
know?
same here.
And then if
I
you
like
want to chat with someone, you can.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say that I don't have friends or like close friends that I'll, talk with for 4 hours or whatever, but like that feeds me.
Yeah, same here. Same here. I actually used to go out to the clubs by myself a lot, and people are like, "How did you do that?" But I think
Yeah.
I had the same sort of thing. I liked
Yeah. It's like,
being
see
able
what
to.
happens.
Yeah, I just was. It was like completely like soldier of fortune, whatever you want to call it. Like I'd see people I know, I'd go talk to them. I'd see another group of people I know,
Totally.
go talk to them. Like I was
I
just
don't
this is
know.
what I wanted.
I think it's good, like for your character. I did that too in my 20s. I remember one of my exes being like, you're just going to go out dancing by yourself. And I was like, yes,
Mm-hmm.
it's good. It keeps you humble. It's like, and it's like the fastest way to be present with yourself is
Yeah.
fucking go out somewhere alone
Yep.
and just react, like engage with the world,
Yep.
you know? And then it's like good footing under you. And then when good things happen, it's like, yes, like there are people out there that you can talk to and connect with. And sometimes you just got to like put yourself out there and be vulnerable enough to make it happen.
Yep. Yep. So Maggie, how do you get work as a journalist?
Um, well, I worked at CBC for a long time as a casual employee. So like I
Yeah.
didn't have a staff position, but at the time it was like they always needed people around and I would
Yeah.
just do any job that was available. So I did that for like a decade.
Yeah.
And then I worked in private radio for a little bit and then when the children were really wee, like babies, I would do like one radio documentary a year
Mm-hmm.
because through like a producer that I already knew at CBC.
Yeah.
And then, like I said earlier, I just was like, I can't do that anymore. Like
Yeah.
I can't do it. And then I kind of accidentally fell into this specialty where I report on, like people who have been violated,
Mm-hmm.
which I really didn't mean to, like, I didn't set out to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But now most of the stories that I do are people like, it's really intense, but I'll get an email or a call from someone and they're like, this horrifying thing happened to me. I hear you're the person to talk to,
Right. Right.
which,
Right.
on the one hand is like a tremendous honor, right? That
Mm-hmm.
a stranger would feel like they can trust me,
Yeah.
and
So,
on the other hand, it's like, oh, fuck, how am I going to I got to figure out a way to do this so that I don't, you know, expire from heartbreak.
yeah, seriously.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, but basically that's how I get most of my work now. Or I'll see something outrageous and be like, why the fuck isn't this being reported on? And then I'll do it.
Do it. Right. Right. And then you got featured in Oprah.
Yeah, the podcast got a shout out in Oprah, which was like the craziest like highlight of my career for sure. Yeah.
Like, yeah, like that must have been amazing. Did that open up any like new opportunities, or was it kind of just like
Well, yeah. So the podcast was like doing pretty good numbers, I guess, in Canada when it first started, like in the very beginning when we were releasing, an episode per week or whatever last year,
mm-hmm,
and then it got mentioned on this American podcast called Crime Writers On, where
mm-hmm,
they have this like it's like shit you've never heard of section or whatever.
yeah,
It was like obscure whatever. And they'd somehow come across it and they were like, oh, I was the like shout out for that week.
yeah,
And I think because a lot of podcast listeners listen to that podcast, it kind of like set a little bit of a flame for us.
mm,
And then I think that's probably but because after that, it was like the numbers in the States went crazy,
mm-hmm,
which I wish I could still have access to that. I guess I could just reach out to the production company, but it was crazy. Like even 6 months ago, it was like getting a shitload of listens per day. And I was like, oh my God, like that's the cool thing about podcasts is that they're still out there. It's like it just lives there and you could find it and engage with it at any point in the way that wouldn't necessarily happen with like a print piece. You know what I mean?
mm. Yeah, right. You know what? I don't want to give any spoilers away, but did you get any backlash from some of the suspicious people involved in the Holly Bartlett podcast?
Well, there's a big interview that I did with someone who was involved,
Hmm.
for better or for worse. With, I mean, obviously it's not for better, but I mean, in terms of that word choice,
Yeah.
uh, and that was definitely one of the most intense interviews I've ever done. And I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't allowed to use the tape in the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Um, So I actually just kind of wrote around it. Like I wrote in like Maggie says, this guy says, and thinking that they would be like, this is bullshit, stop it. Like I fully expected them to get the script and be like, no, you're not doing that. And then they kept it in. So I was like, okay. So I just like transcribed what he said and what I said and then
Mm-hmm.
read it, right?
Yeah.
Um, I've never had contact with that person again.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't drive, so I take a lot of taxis. And I will say that for a long time it was like it was always on the back of my mind. Anytime I got
Mm-hmm.
into a taxi, like,
Yeah.
is it going
It
to be this person? You know?
it's insane. And like, yeah, the fact that people like, yeah, the perception of who this person was and then finding out their responses in the interview was like had me on the edge of my seat. And it was like, wow, like,
I I I had trouble sleeping for like I want to say like 3 weeks after that. The first few days after that interview, I was like in another dimension, and it was tricky because the executives who, in fairness, like made this project happen, right?
mm-hmm.
They didn't really understand the gravity of like what he'd said. Like when I hung up, I like leaned back from the chair and everybody was in the room like watching me conduct this interview, which I just forgot. I like got in the zone and was like fully engaged.
Mm-hmm.
And then after somebody stood up and said like, oh well, there's nothing new in there, and I was like,
Oh yeah.
my jaw was on the floor, like because there were a bunch of new details that I hadn't seen anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
um and then in the end, well, I guess I probably shouldn't spoil it. But yeah, no, I haven't had any direct um like bad feedback or whatever. I guess there's like reviews every now and again where someone's like, Rahr was extremely biased in her reporting, and it's like, well, I don't know if that means that saying like this was improperly investigated and we're going to try to do a good job, then
Mm-hmm.
yes, I stand by that.
Yeah. 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 That the way it got pieced together at the end, I was like, whoa. Now that makes sense. The initial story that the police came up with, I was like,
No,
something's
yeah.
not right. But
And this
that,
is the other like lobe. It's like, all bodies of authority in this province have built in, I mean, racism, number one. Like,
mm-hmm.
the history of this province,
Yeah.
just like I do. And then, yes, misogyny, but also it's like and I'm wondering if this is the next big thing that we'll be able to sort of understand better as a society, which is like the ways in which people with disabilities are discriminated against,
Yes. Yes.
and that it's like not really a part of the conversation
Yeah.
even to date. Like even if you think about, serve, for instance, like the federal government checks that are, and there are disability rights advocates who are like, what the fuck, we've been fighting for this for decades, just to have a baseline income for people who, it's like if you have a severe enough condition or disability, then
Mm-hmm.
you cannot work and have your medication covered, which is like,
Mm-hmm.
who came up with that? Like if
Right.
you are able to work, and if you're resourceful and, like willing and clever enough to come up with solutions that work around your limitations or your interests and your strengths, then why wouldn't the government support that? Like why wouldn't you want someone who wants to work to
Yeah.
pitch in as much as they possibly can while also making sure that they have the medicine that they need to survive paid for?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
it just seems so obvious.
Yeah.
But I think that even like I caught myself saying that something was lame the other day, and I was like, oh my god, I gotta
Mm.
stop that. Like it's, or even the other one, on the note, looping back to transphobia for a second, is like, or misogyny or whatever, is I still say like, hey guys,
Oh
you
yeah, me
know?
too. Me too.
And
Yeah.
to me, it feels gender neutral
Yeah.
because that's how fucking old we are.
Yeah.
It's like you just
Yeah.
bought it hook, line, and sinker that it includes everyone, you
Yeah.
know?
That guys are the default and women are
Yeah.
the
And even my
alternate.
little girl the other day said, like, hey guys. And I was like, uh-oh.
Right. Right.
But that stuff is just, it's like it's built in, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. We all have to unlearn. And that's the other thing why I empathize too, because I definitely had things that I had to unlearn and things that I'm still unlearning and working on.
Totally.
So I I try to have some grace with people when if I can see them trying.
Yeah.
Uh, so
Yeah, I know what you mean.
yeah, it's when
Because,
people are continually just ignorant, willfully ignorant, then I'm like, you know what? If they flame you, they flame you.
yeah.
Yeah.
And again, it's like, whose job is it to hold that person's hand?
Yep.
I mean, I've been criticized for that. It's like, why don't you just take a lighter touch? And I'm like, because you can fuck off. Like, especially when it comes to, questions of like misogyny or, homophobia or transphobia or whatever. It's like, I'm not, I mean, maybe that's it. It's like, if it affects you directly, like I'm bi. So, part of me is like, I don't have, like, the well is dry. I don't have the patience to really get into a, like, 40-minute conversation with someone that I don't know, or about like why trans rights are valid and should be unquestioned. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
If you don't
'cause
understand,
the
fuck you.
yeah, and the cost is too high for me because it's like it's too close to the surface.
Hmm.
Whereas, like, if on questions of racism, for instance, and I don't want to sound like comparing them as it's
Hmm.
because they're not. It's like completely different, like islands or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
But if it's not something that affects me directly, I think about it differently. It's like, okay, well, I have a duty to like stand up and try to pitch in and do my part because
Hmm.
it's not costing me, right?
Hmm.
It's not hurting me to have this conversation, even though like I'm fucking shattered at what's happening in the world. But it's
Yeah.
not. I'm not targeted, so it's like,
Yes.
okay, then I will invest in this conversation because
Hmm.
it's my job. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yep. Cool. So, if you have any advice for an aspiring investigative journalist, what would that be?
Mm. My advice would be trust your instincts. If
Okay.
there's something that you feel like needs examination and acknowledgement and needs to be better understood than it is,
Hmm.
don't wait for somebody to give you permission to start looking into that. Even if you don't know where your piece is going to land, like if you're already a journalist and you're thinking that you want to do a bigger, longer investigation into something,
Hmm.
maybe this is terrible advice because it's really hard to get paid for this work for like the time that you put in.
Yeah.
But if you feel like there's a story that isn't being told that needs to be told, fucking do it and trust your own gut and don't be shy to like seek out mentors, ask for help. Anytime anyone has ever reached out to me, be it like former students or journalists starting out or people that are in like similar but different careers, like adjacent careers, like documentary filmmakers or whatever,
Hmm.
and they if they have questions or they want to sit down for coffee or whatever, I'm like, yes, it's always a huge yes.
Yep.
Because I would want, I had so many people that stuck their neck out for me and answered my questions and gave me suggestions and
Hmm.
you know but if you yeah, that would be my advice. If you feel strongly about a story or a voice or an issue that needs to be looked at, fucking do it. And don't wait for someone to give you permission, just do it. And then you'll find a home for it later. And if you're at that
Agreed.
stage and you're confused and you don't know what to do, you can contact me.
It's that's great advice. Art pays me is a passion project for me, and it's the thing that got me the most fulfillment slash notoriety in anything I've done. It's like
Yeah.
it was just something I felt I had to do,
Yeah.
not because I thought I was gonna be successful. I just had to do it. So
Yeah. It had to be done.
yeah. You have anything next that you want to promote? Anything coming out?
Hmm. I do, but it's in the really early stages.
Okay.
So I'm working on 2 stories right now that will come together at some point in the future. I'm being super vague. But in the meantime, I do a little bit of work with Love with Leave Out Violence, Nova Scotia.
Oh, yeah.
Or they're not Leave Out Violence anymore, actually. It's just Love Nova Scotia. They've rebranded.
Mm-hmm.
But any white listeners that want to make a meaningful contribution to like the movement to protect and honor Black lives and their inherent rights, that's a great organization who like work with oppressed and disenfranchised kids, and they really commit to them. So yeah, I would definitely give them a plug. Love Nova Scotia on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, all that.
Okay. How do people find you?
Just my name on Twitter. It's Maggie Rahr, Rahr.
All right. Maggie, thank you for taking the time out to do Art Pays Me.
Thank you so much for having me. Thanks for like enduring all my interruptions and questions and shit. It's been really nice.
Yeah, it was nice this is the first time we really had a conversation, actually, other than just
yeah. Yeah. Next step, hang out in person.
Yes.
When it's safe.
You know what's funny though? Like this podcast is actually increasing my friend circle, so I have to love it for that.
Calendar's full. No room on the dance card.
No, I wasn't even saying it that way. I'm
just teasing.
No, like, yeah, it's nice to be like meeting people who are on the same wavelength,
Yeah. Well, it's been an honor. Thank you for having me.
Cool. Thank you. Take care.
Yeah, you too. Good luck out there.
Yeah. Thank you so much for listening to the Art Pays Me podcast. Thank you to Langy Beats for the theme music. If you got anything out of this show, please rate, review, and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on. The more you do this, the more reach the podcast gets, and the more artists I can help learn to make a living at what they love. If you want to know more about what I do, hit me up at artpaysme.com or at artpaysme on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and Pinterest. See y'all next time.